We ain't partners, we ain't brothers, and we ain't friends. I'm putting you down and keeping you down until Gans is locked up or dead. And if Gans gets away, you're gonna be sorry you ever met me.
I'm already sorry.
Nick Nolte is a cop. Eddie Murphy is a con.
I can help you get Gans, but you gotta get me out of here first.
You're crazy.
He pulls some strings.
See how you need me a little more than you thought, huh, Mr. K?
He pulls some scams.
So where do you want to do it, honey? Want to hop up on the counter?
Nah, we can go in this room over here next to the bathroom.
Give me a break,
I'm
will
dead
you?
serious.
Come on, we're on the move. Let's go.
48 hours.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unpopular Reviews. So tonight we have my pick, 48 Hours, an unconventional buddy cop movie. I would say that's what it is. It's 1980s, so it's definitely got some age on it. We're definitely going to be getting into that because it is a bit of a wild ride, and I can't wait for you to take it with me. So let's start the show. All right. We're ready to get into this, but I am contractually obligated to never do this alone. So I've got some people with me. I'm going to start with not Honeydew, not Watermelon, but the man himself, Cantaloupe.
MAGA. I felt like I was watching a MAGA infomercial. 90 minutes. Woo, you wasn't lying. It took me back. My vote may surprise you. Not that vote, but this vote tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this early 80s movie and all that entails.
Yes.
But, we also aren't going to do this alone. Let's bring out the number 3 in this trio, the executive consultant. Welcome, sir. Good evening.
How you doing? I love watching movies that were made before I was born. So this was definitely up there for me. And it was a little eye-opening. I can't wait to talk about it. Thank you so much, Next Doctor.
You're very welcome. So we've got Nick Nolte. We've got early Eddie Murphy. Definitely my favorite version of him in his acting career. This time in his life. Nick Nolte is a cop. Starts out with there's an ex. There's a con. They escape. By happenstance, they happen to come across the guy in a hotel. Chaos ensues. Cop loses his gun. One of his fellow cops gets shot with the very same gun. And now it's chaos, and he's got to solve the case. And, he notices that they find out who it is, the con. He's looking up his old buddy. Some people are dying. So he's like, I got to get ahead of this thing. So who else is on the team? None other than Eddie Murphy. So he goes to talk to Eddie Murphy and he's like, hey, you need to help me. Eddie Murphy's like, well, you got to help me. So get me out of here and we can see what we can do. And the story takes off from there. Being that this is in the 80s, is definitely some choice language. The setting is definitely, early 80s America and all that entails. But let's hear some thoughts from either one of you.
Chris, you want to go or you want me to go?
It looks like that's going to be you first, Cantaloupe.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to read the sign language that Ray Charles is giving tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all on the audio podcast, it's a wild show tonight. Listen, no, I thought you were absolutely correct. I was just looking up some images that I plan to add later to bolster my opinions on this movie. Yes, it's an 80s movie. Arguably, I think it plays better as an 80s movie than as a dynamic duo, which isn't to say that it plays on my vote, but it's very 80s in the truest sense of the word. And I did appreciate that more than anything, whether I liked or disliked what they were saying or some of the character motivations. I thought that the characters were true to life, and I'll never fault a movie for that because they were playing who they were supposed to be, and I thought everybody did a fantastic job on that. I would have liked to see more of not detective work, I guess, but it seemed like once they actually, teamed up, quote unquote, it was boom, bam, done. I would have loved to see more of them both getting to shine because we don't really get to see that. Again, more on that later. But there were aspects that I very much did like and appreciate, and I'm gonna hold off, as I said, because I plan to touch base on that again. But Chris, go ahead, take it.
You know what? I have a few choice words for this movie. And you might ask me why. He's like, consultant, why would you have a few choice words? Because this movie had a few choice words for me. Boy, the N-word. I think it was watermelon. I think it was another
Watermelon.
One. Yeah, watermelon was it? Yeah. Yep. Ooh, I try to ignore Nick Nolte, right? Because I was interested in the villain, Dexter's father. But I couldn't ignore certain things I was trying to ignore, right? Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte got into a fist fight.
Eddie Murphy.
Well, Eddie Murphy's stunt double.
And his stunt double.
Did you catch that one in 4K?
That is one of the things about seeing movies later.
Yeah.
You can see those things that you might not have caught in a theater.
I said he couldn't grow his hair out just a little bit in time for this movie.
I didn't even see that. But
you didn't notice that? It was so obvious.
No, I didn't notice, but it makes sense. And I'm pretty sure when Eddie Murphy got back into it, he is when he started getting his ass whooped. Because at first he was taking it to
it was
and I was like, okay, all right, good. Take it to this racist, right? And then all of a sudden
for no reason.
That didn't last long.
Yeah.
Well, I will say though, the after effects were more prominent on Nick Nolte's character than Eddie Murphy's. Like,
for somebody who got punched in the face a lot of times. Yeah, I give you that. Eddie Murphy's character going and trying to get, as he calls it, trim, and I don't know that was the phrasing for it back then. I found to be very entertaining. My favorite scene, even though cringe, was, if anybody can guess, his character, Eddie Murphy's character, going into a old country bar and
wreaking havoc.
In that old country bar, was able to stand up to a boatload of Caucasian people and not get his ass whooped, not one time, or shot or stabbed. That was amazing to me. I appreciated that.
That's how he beat Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte ended up winning, though. After he just said, "Hey," I'm a racist, and then it was so interesting to see the chief or sergeant or lieutenant or the captain or wherever he was. This guy plays more authority figure in the '80s than what we about to say, Cantaloupe.
Hey, watch it. Hey, no, wasn't he the same guy in like one of those spoof movies?
Yes, I was just about to say he was in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie,
Last Action Hero.
Last Action Hero as the loud
sergeant or something, right?
Yeah, he was just a loud, like he was just always shouting. Every time he came on, he was just shouting. It didn't even matter.
That's what he does in every movie he played.
Wasn't he in like that Lethal Weapon spoof as well?
Loaded Weapon? Loaded Weapon?
Loaded Weapon, or like one of the not Liam Neeson.
Spy Hard?
Spy
Hard?
No. What's the one? Leslie Nielsen. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you're talking about Leslie Nielsen. You're talking about Spy Hard. You're talking about
I just remember him.
The
The
Naked
one
Gun.
with Priscilla Presley, I think it was.
The Naked Gun.
Naked Gun, yeah.
I think he wasn't Naked Gun. He's always playing a cop. That's
Yeah,
that's what black people were good for in the 80s.
Well,
What? What?
agree to disagree. If we were pimp,
If you go back and look at a lot of these 1980 movies,
Yeah.
you'll see that a lot of black people were playing cops.
Oh, okay.
That's what they were good for. Carl Winslow. Now look, here's my thing.
Beverly Hills Cop.
48 hours. And then so as my man Mark Victor Rodriguez would say, I have regrets. I have regrets because I always heard about this movie. I never wanted to watch it. Or never took the time to watch it. I can't say I never wanted to watch it. Because when the next doctor picked up, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a chance. And I gave it a chance. And I have to say, I was offended. That's all I got.
Well, I uploaded my pictures. I don't know if we need to promo our next episode with just Singing in the Rain. But
are you telling me to cut into a commercial break?
No. I'm saying I don't know if we need to, but I have my pictures up. Can we go back to the police captain, please? Now, I wanted to flame this guy so bad, but I looked it up, and he's gone now.
Yes, he
God
is.
bless him.
He is past.
But in 1981 or 1981,
Before we get started,
yeah.
does anybody want to get off? Because this is exactly what this man said. He said, I wanted to flame him so bad, but that's all. However,
listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know this, I'm an American. I'm so American, I'm a colonial. Okay, what does that mean? I've been here a long, long time. Let me slow down. Scrap what I was about to say. I've been here a long, long time. My co-host can read my mind and divine what I was going to say, and we would have not been on the air the next time because we don't know YouTube, okay, or these other platforms. In any event, Chris, you're making the face. Don't tempt me, okay? Please. Don't
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. But anyway, listen, I wanted to flame this guy, but he passed on in 2021. But like Chris said, he's played a lot of cops. But in this movie, he plays somebody completely different. Who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this guy right here, Mr. McCrae. That's his real name. I don't know what his name was in the movie because they said it like one time. I forgot. And every other time we see him, he's just yelling and screaming. And it looked like he wanted to bust out laughing, so I couldn't take him serious because I just know him from like Naked Gun or whatever. But I couldn't take his yelling seriously. Also, I thought he was wearing a bodysuit underneath his tailor-made suit.
Now, that was for Eddie Murphy in later movies.
Yes, exactly. I thought he taught Eddie Murphy everything in this new. But in this movie, he's playing a different character. And man, oh man. Now, this is the Tap Dance Man from Them, if you've seen that series. Now listen, why am I saying that? As I said, I don't necessarily have a problem with this movie. I'm an American. I'm a product of America. The good, the bad, okay, and the ugly. Shout out to you, Clint Eastwood, okay? What does that mean? Well, they're playing cops, and it's cops in 1980, 1981, I think it was, right? So what would a black cop have to do in order to become the sergeant or lieutenant of that particular precinct in that particular city? Because if you notice, there weren't a lot of black cops there. And if they were beat cops. Any other beat cop that we saw was white. And they had been on the job for a minute. There weren't too many rookies in this movie, which leads me to believe that he had to endure a lot of things. So even though I thought that he tap danced, as he said to Eddie Murphy, yes, I called you the N-word, and I hope you burn in hell. He didn't say that last part, but that's just what it reminded me of. I'm sure he had to do a lot of things. Now, there are some, I would imagine, who do those things and hate it and hate themselves. And then there are those who do it and don't even care. Because as we've seen in, what was that movie, the biopic about, Ice Cube and Dr. Dre and everything. What do they call, what was the name of that movie that they did on them a couple of years ago? I forget.
I can't remember right now. I'll know it in a second.
But when you see the black cop with those other cops, how he was acting and everything like that. And there are those like that, okay? But even if you hate what you're doing, but you do it to get by, little by little, it begins to eat away at your character if you have one to begin with. Okay. Um, to the point where you are no longer the person that you are now that you came in the door with. Okay. And that's why I put up that picture with him, because I thought more than Nick Nolte, more than the rednecks that Chris was talking about in that bar, more than the dude who was best friends with the Indian but kept calling him Indian. Shout out to James Remar, who never let this man forget, you are Indian, you are not like me. Shout out to the cops who never described James Remar's character, but always said he's traveling with a tall Indian. Shout out to the Predator who finally caught that Indian in 1987. It took him a couple of years, but he tracked him down. He was in Central America. Shout out to that Predator. But more than them, I look at him, because as Eddie Murphy character looks at him, he's like, wow. And he says, yes, I did call you that. And if you don't understand this, it's probably because you're not part of the family. And what do I mean by that? You didn't grow up culturally the same as me. There are certain rules that we all abide by. There are certain things that we may tolerate, but there's certain hard set rules that we abide by. And for you to do your own like that was just shocking to this guy. We don't know what crime Eddie Murphy's character committed to become a convict, but he was blown away by that, no pun intended. And that cop doubling down on it, I thought was more egregious than Nick Nolte, who by any rights, that's who he should have been in 1980. That's who those honky tonk bar club members should be. You know what I mean? Arguably, it should be who James Remar, though we don't really necessarily see that. He just keeps calling him Indian. You know what I mean? Maybe he's colorblind, so he has to remember. But, you know, so I thought that was the most egregious one. That's why I give him the Tap Dance Man Award for tonight's episode, because, yes, this man who screamed, and shout out to him for screaming, did more to hurt black people than Nick Nolte and his weak punches, because as you saw, Eddie Murphy had nothing on his face, and Nick Nolte was scathed left and right. That's all I had to say. Straight out of Compton. Thank you.
Straight out of Compton. Listen, my thoughts on this movie. This was my pick. I remember not seeing this movie in the theater, but seeing it on TV. So definitely some things would have been censored. But I remember at the time enjoying it because it was just funny. You know, the interaction to me was hilarious, you know, poking at each other, you know, getting one-ups. I thought that was hilarious. Watching it again today, you know, it definitely was like, okay, now I see the 1980s in this. You know, as an adult, I can see, okay, the underlying tones that are mixed in with this movie. You know, of course, it's still, you know, it's an action, it's a comedy, but those tones were there, and it's like, man, you know, would I really want to see this type of movie today? I mean, obviously, I don't think this kind of movie could really be made today, but, you know, would this be something I want to see today? Would this be something I want to show my children if I had any kids? And, you know, historically, probably. You know, just because we need to remember what our history is, otherwise it repeats. So, along with it being funny, you know, definitely can make note of the racist undertones there. But you know, I still think it's worth a watch again these days, just so you can understand. You know, this is America. You know, a lot of people try to pretend like, oh, you know, it wasn't really that bad. Oh, you know, that was back in slavery. That was 400 years ago. You didn't have to deal with this type of stuff. This was 1980. You know, I was born in 79. So, you know, I've had my share of run-ins. And yeah, it was still a funny movie, but you know, it's not lost on me that this was made in the 80s, and it's front and center. Anyway, I think at this point, maybe it's time to pay some bills, show some things that we're going to be coming up later this week and maybe next week.
Those sailors out there are just boys. Boys who are training to do a terrible and unthinkable thing. And if that ever occurs, the only reassurance they'll have that they're doing the proper thing is going to derive from their unqualified belief in the unified chain of command. That means we don't question each other's motives in front of the crew. It means we don't undermine each other. It means they hear your voice right after mine without hesitation. Give them a missile key. Give me the missile key, Mr. Hunter. I'm the commander of this fucking ship! Give me the goddamn key!
In the art of crashing weddings, John and Jeremy are the masters. Now,
What do we got?
This is the Kentucky Derby of weddings.
they're crashing the biggest wedding of the year.
So what angle are you gonna play here? I'm gonna go with the balloon animal display for the kids.
I want a bicycle.
Buddy, that's gonna take a lot of balloons.
Make me a bicycle, clown.
And meeting the two girls
John Ryan.
Claire Cleary.
that will bring them to their knees.
I always knew my first time would be on a beach.
Sanjay Collins.
Chuck Vendelou?
Seamus O'Toole. Bobby O'Shea. I'm ready to get drunk.
Wedding Crashers.
And we are back. Let's wrap this thing up with some final thoughts. Who wants to go first? Mr. Cantaloupe or the executive consultant?
I'll go first because I see Cantaloupe has stuff queued up. So
Ooh, taking off the shades for this one.
I had to take off the shades because this movie doesn't like black people. Look, I really do.
That's a double joke, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't get that.
I find this movie to have a lot of hilarious points to it. I think Eddie Murphy played his role very well. I believe Nick Nolte played his part very well, maybe too well. Played his part very well as a smoker in the 80s, which everybody did apparently, especially if you want to be a badass cop. I believe that the final act with them going after Dexter's father and Dexter's father having his last stand is he's holding on to Mushu. I'm sorry, Eddie Murphy, and Nick Nolte just appearing like some kind of robotic superhero in the alley. I could tell they reshot some scenes. That was one of them. He said, "Hey, I got bigger." Shot, overkill. So no, it was an experience. But did I enjoy it? That's always the question. Yeah, the problem with that is it's the wrong one. However,
yeah, I'm like,
Magneto was right. Shout out Magneto.
Yeah.
Magneto was indeed right. It still gets a thumbs up for me. I did enjoy it. I was entertained. Thumbs up for me.
Let me jump in here. Listen, shout out to apple pie. Shout out to America. Shout out to racism. You never left us. Now look, was the movie true to life? Yeah, I think it was. To the doctor's point, I think that the sad thing is that they don't make movies like this today. Why? Because there are people like that. And I think that the closer you make art to true life, the better the art is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. To show true life, the same as war photos, is not to glorify war. It's to put a spotlight on it. And then the viewer themselves can make their own opinion. There's always going to be somebody who tries to emulate Superman, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have comic book films. In this case in point of police, it's good to show that all police aren't these noble people in these small towns. No, some are just as dark as the convicts. They just haven't gotten caught. They just haven't been prosecuted. And it's okay to show that, I personally believe. But I'm a child of the 80s, so what do I know about today? I will say this, though. Never, because I hadn't seen this movie before, I didn't realize that this movie had a line in it, or scene rather, I should say, that was something that I always loved, but I never knew it was from this movie. So I just like to play this scene because I said, wow, I can't believe I never knew it was from this one.
Then what you seeing here?
Daddy Valiant! Well, you're a sight for sore
I ain't
eyes.
seen you to 9 on to 5 years.
Where you been?
Drunk.
Now that was a scene right before, as Chris says, Nick Nolte comes out after a great pump, and he shoots the guy in the arm, even though Eddie Murphy is like literally right there covering his shoulder. So shout out to Nick Nolte and his magic bullets, okay, and the editor of that piece. Shout
And
out
the
to
fact that Dexter's father had an unlimited supply of bullets, because this one gun was the golden gun, is what I call it, was shooting
Nick Nolte
everybody.
reloaded like 3 times throughout the movie. Remar was just blasting and never had reload. It was a magic gun. Ladies and gentlemen, it was phenomenal. But of course, I'm joking because I'm with the BS. But this is actually the scene that I'm talking about.
Luther, are you angry with me?
Yeah, I never knew it was from this movie, but I always heard that line. And so I said, oh, okay, that's what it's from. And as you know, if you've been watching the show, I always enjoy watching movies that I've never seen before. Now, of course, that depends on who picks it and what mood I'm in. But tonight, it gets a thumbs up because it was good and it was true to life.
All right, 2 thumbs up. Now, time for me. One of the quotes that I always found interesting was when, after, they've gotten used to each other, Nick Nolte's character, he starts apologizing, and he's like, it was just my job to keep you down.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck me, watching it again as an adult, like, man, yeah. I mean, it really does point to, like a theme that was definitely running throughout the movie and, just, the 80s. So I thought that was, like you said, true to life. And, as my pick, again, watching it again, definitely saw things that I didn't pick up on as a kid watching this. And, but it was still a fun ride. I was still laughing throughout the entire movie. And I think that goes to, Nick Nolte's acting chops, also Eddie Murphy's acting chops. Again, I love this era of Eddie Murphy. So it's definitely a thumbs up for me. Also, shout out Tasha Yar with the baseball.
Yeah.
She came through. This is how she got her security training to be able to get on the Enterprise later. So shout out to her.
This is how she fought those black people in that episode on season 1 of Star Trek. You remember that one? When they kidnapped her?
Your background is from another 48 hours. And I wanted to know if you knew that.
Now, Chris calls me petty, but this is the highlight of Chris being petty.
You may ask, is what he's saying.
Rashad, I didn't want to interrupt when you were saying it, but that line that Nick Nolte gives, hey, I didn't mean everything I said. It was just my job to keep you down. He actually got that line from somebody else. I did some research and found out that the CIA actually gave him that line. And that's the line that the CIA has been using for at least 70 years. I know Americans don't realize that, but the rest of the world, they've been hearing it their entire lives. So that's what he said. It's my job to keep you down. It's nothing personal. It's just my job. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know Rashad, next doctor is about to wrap us up, but I will say this, in case you didn't watch the episode that we did previously to this episode, the X-Men episode 6 episode, breaking news.
Yep, they got rid of him, right?
Huh?
They got rid of the creator.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this. Robert Pattinson was voted as the second worst Batman by DC fans in recent poll. And just like I said in the previous episode, I definitely have to disagree. I think it's a travesty. He was voted the second worst. He is clearly the worst Batman ever in life.
Who was voted worst?
Yeah. George Clooney was voted worst, but it should have been Robert Pattinson. And I just want to recount because But if anything, it should just prove the Batman, which probably should still be the line, is a horrible movie. The Batman was so bad they had to they pushed Batman 2 more years because they knew it sucked.
I agree with Clooney.
Obviously, you haven't seen the Batman.
Well, listen.
You need to watch it again.
as I go, cue that up. We're going to get out of here. For Cantaloupe, for the executive consultant, I've been the Next Doctor and continue to be the Next Doctor. We'll see you next time here on Popular Review.
They call me Mr. Cantaloupe.
The Batman was a horrible movie.